Hello, everyone. Sufit here. I'm here today with Chuck Ticker, estate mediator and author of Bobby Gets Bupkis, Navigating the Sibling Estate Fight. Welcome, Chuck.
Hi, Sophie. Good to be back.
So, my question for you today, Chuck, is does where one sits in a mediation make a difference to the outcome of the mediation? Does it matter where one sits? And let's start this question in the context of the three places that you might have a mediation.
Okay, so I guess in terms of places, well, obviously what we've seen since the pandemic is, and even to this day, to a great extent, is virtual mediations, where people just show up on their screen and they're in virtual breakout rooms and virtual meeting rooms, and then there's a hybrid of that, which I think maybe you were alluding to, where I'm starting to see clients and lawyers together in the same physical space, although they're on the mediation virtually, they're together in the, let's say, the lawyer's office, and they're joining the meeting virtually from the lawyer's office. And then, of course, we have the traditional in-person mediation where everybody attends in person. And I guess there's actually a fourth where everyone attends in person, and there might be someone who's not there who joins the in-person meeting virtually because they're out of
Interesting.
country or they're not there. So that's another variation. So
Okay.
yeah. So in
Okay.
terms of, yes, go ahead.
No, no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
So in terms of where you're sitting, obviously when it's virtual, everyone's in a different position depending what their laptop looks like because I'm not always in the middle, and I could be in, then someone will be in one corner, and then the other screen they're in the other corner. But in terms of in person, I mean, typically it's a rectangular table. We'll have a joint session, the opening joint session in the at the beginning in a boardroom, and it's usually a large board table, typically obviously rectangle or sometimes oval, and I'll typically be at the end. Um, because maybe trying to be neutral. I'm not going to be on either side, and it's difficult for me to be on one side facing the other side because you won't get all the other parties wanting to sit on the same side of the table. But in terms of where everybody else sits, I'd like to have the clients closer to me. So there's a tendency if I'm sitting at the table and we have parties on either side, the lawyers, they think like they're still in court. They want to be close to me, and the clients want to hide behind the lawyers. So I'm usually pretty deliberate about that. I say, no, please, Mr. Mrs. So-and-so, would you please sit here next to me so because I want to talk to you. And same thing when it's done virtually, you'll see sometimes where the lawyers are there and the client's sort of off camera. And I got to say, but, I don't see your client. Can you please bring your client into to the angle of the camera angle so I can see him or her? And sometimes the client's behind. I said, please bring the client to the front. I'm always trying to make it client focused. And you hear of studies been done where in business meetings there's a difference where you sit and who's the leader and who's the follower, who's more active. And I guess for the joint session, I do most of the talking, so I'm at the head of the table. Um, and I guess if we put a lawyer at the head of the table, we would never finish at the joint session. So actually, it reminds me of a story when I was first starting being trained as a mediator. I attended a mediation. Uh, uh, Cliff Handler, a very well-known mediator, was very kind to let me observe, and they were doing opening statements, and the lawyer was going on for 2 hours. Okay, so we don't do opening statements at my mediations
Okay.
because we have too much work to do. Anyway, so does that sort of answer your question, or probably raises more
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah. So you say that the table is typically rectangle. What would happen if the table were round?
Um, I
Would
you
it
know
make a difference?
I don't recall ever being in a mediation in person where it was a round table, but certainly I have been at mediation training programs and other programs where setting people chairs up in a circle or using round tables are deliberately used to encourage discussion and collaboration and participation. So, like it's very easy if you have someone at the end of the table to say, okay, let that person chair the meeting and lead the show, whatever. When you're in a circle, even though you may have a moderator in the circle, they're not really at a focal point, and it is used to, I think, to generate discussion, to have people open up, and I would think yes, a secret table would lead itself to be, um, lead itself more to collaboration and cooperation. And you see this, in the indigenous community where they have the circle of healing, and there's a reason for that. Now, um, in my practice, where the parties don't even want to look at one another, it could be a bit of a challenge to get everyone sitting in a circle, and have that kumbaya moment. It's just not going to happen. But yes, I agree, and I think it would make a difference, but it's very difficult in practice to bring that about, in my view.
Yeah, they say there's a sort of a science of body language, and what the experts say is that the person who sits at the end of the table is generally more dominant than the other parties. So I'd be interested to see what would happen if you were at a mediation where, one of the parties was asked to sit at the end of the table, or they were rotating, or, I mean, do those kinds of things affect the outcome, do you think?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point. And I maybe I'll try that sometime. There's no question. I think, yeah, the person at the head of the table, because everyone's sort of looking at the head of the table, and I guess maybe the only time you don't want to be at the head of tables when you're going out for dinner with friends, and they're going to say the guy at the table, the end of the table, picks up the check.
Right.
But um, having parties do that, it would be interesting. It would be an interesting exercise. I haven't tried it, and like I said, most of the mediations I'm seeing are still done. The vast majority being done virtually. And so it'd be difficult to do that. Also, in the estate context, um, a lot of these parties just don't want to be in the same room together and talk to one another. So it would be a challenge. And certainly doing it in one day, if we were doing a mediation that was, let's say, going over several days, I think that would be an interesting progression to sort of say, okay, you're going to chair the meeting today, or you're going to set the agenda today. But when we only have one day, and a good part of the day is just spent lowering the temperatures, it would be difficult in practice. But I think it would be a very interesting experiment.
Well, there you have it. Our guest today has been Chuck Ticker, author of Bobby Gets Bubkiss, Navigating the Sibling Estate Fight. He's an estate mediator. Chuck, thank you very much.
My pleasure.